Hi, everybody. Got a good looking crew.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad. I can't see everybody. I'm not on my computer, but thanks so much for doing this.
You're welcome. So, hey, so my connection has been bad. So,
Okay.
Just let me know.
Okay. All right. We'll do. I'm at my sister-in-law's house on her Wi-Fi and everything. So I'm hoping everything goes okay here as well.
Okay. Well, I love your background.
Oh,
Way to show off.
Like that. I like my logo.
I have a Rad 1441, but I look terrible, so I don't do it. Fernando got me one, the whole bit.
So it's been a long time since I've talked to you one-on-one. I got a photo. I don't know if you remember. I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it here.
Oh, gall. Oh my gosh.
You remember?
Did I just have a baby? Look how cute.
High school when we did that, like the play 60 whatever clinic or whatever. It was like,
oh yeah. I remember that. I don't remember the picture, but cute picture.
Yeah, that was the club that I was working for at the time. That all those coaches were my coaches that were providing you like the support staff for that clinic.
Oh, how fun. Well, I like this full circle.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, you want to get right into it. I reached out to the girls and talked to them about submitting some questions that they would want to ask you, and then some of them I have a little bit on my own here as well. So we're ready to go.
Let's have at it. I'll do my best.
I'm gonna start easy. Somebody wanted to know what your favorite sports movie is.
Oh, good one. Ah, damn it. Well, Rocky one, just Rocky and Rocky 4, and then Hoosiers.
Yeah, good choices. I can go rock out to the Rocky 4 soundtrack when I need an extra pick me up.
I know, it's so good. If you grew up in a generation, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. One girl just simply wanted to know why you decided to play beach instead of going the indoor route of making overseas indoor year. Here.
Yeah, it was a total shock to me. That's for sure. I had played 12 years indoor at the time. I started when I was 10. My first Olympics, I had just turned 22 in Sydney at my first Olympics. Played 4 years at Stanford, and I was in love with the game, like 1,000,000% in love. However, to make a living indoor, you have to go overseas for 8 months at a time, and that's not me. Like, that would have crushed my soul. The money is guaranteed when you play indoor. You go over there, you have a salary, which is totally opposite on the beach. You're paycheck to paycheck, and you pay to work basically, and hope you win prize money to pay your bills. But, I didn't want to go play overseas. I was contemplating going in Puerto Rico because they have a shorter season, and I went there for a visit. But at the Olympics in 2000, before I switched to beach, my parents talked to Misty May's parents. And it was there that they kind of threw out the idea the girls should get together and have a tryout, because we were very familiar with each other because the juniors game indoor. She was always a year older, but she's my idol. And so our parents got to talking. They basically set us up on a blind date. I was still going to Stanford at the time, and I drove down and we had a tryout. And, in Sydney, I had a false positive drug test. And it was for testosterone. Like, I'm like skin and bones, and I had this false positive, and my federation was like, you need to go home. We can't risk this. Go home. They left me out to dry, and that really broke my heart. And so I missed the first 3 or 4 matches fighting this, and we won, and I was able to compete by the end, but it was really gnarly. And I think the fact that I just felt so alone and isolated, I was ready for a change. And then as what happens, you know, when your world gets shaken up, I kind of put a dream out there, like, or a prayer, you know, God help me find my next path. And, you know, Misty May, the best that's ever been, I was looking for a partner. So it all worked out. But I was terrible. Like, I was so terrible on the beach that I'm shocked I had the courage to do that, because I also had an ego and I didn't want to look like an idiot. And I certainly looked like an idiot for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for all of us, I'm sure. I went to school in Santa Barbara, and I felt like a good indoor player. And I went to the beach and just got my butt handed to me by 60-year-old men that chopped everything. It was like, made me feel so, my athleticism was worthless. At that
That's
point,
like the best thing about the game and the worst thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, you can play until you're 90 and just be weird. But yeah, it was a worthwhile kind of enduring of suffering and humility, and growing pains, you know, when I came out to the beach. I'm so glad I did it. Obviously, it's given me the most beautiful life, but it was not easy. And it wasn't easy because I just expected to come out pretty hot and ready to go because of my years indoor, you know, and I at a really high level. And it just wasn't that way, because the nuances, the sand, the wind, everything crushed me. And so just time in the saddle helped me. Being an athlete, you know, helped me, and my foundation of skills helped me, but it took time.
Well, this isn't on my list, but just quickly, just off of that, you know, so many girls are discouraged from playing beach who play indoor because they think they're going to be bad at it, or they show up and they are bad at it. And you, as a coach, obviously you're trying to encourage them to get through that process. Do you, I myself as a coach, like, every single one of my kids would play beach to some extent. All my indoor players, at least like some sort of beach, even if it's like off season stuff, I would have them do it if I had it my way. Do you feel similarly to that, or?
I mean, I feel like every athlete in every sport could play beach volleyball for amazing cross training. You know, obviously the crossover for indoor to beach is perfect. A lot of indoor coaches don't want their players playing beach because they think it'll mess up their timing and all these things, but it takes a practice to get back into the rhythm, you know. And I think the benefits of playing beach, just with your integrity in your body, the self-accountability that you have, you know, the kind of the mental endurance that you have, since the spotlight is much bigger, since there's only 2 of you, I think the benefits far outweigh, as long as you make sure you have an off season somewhere. You know, the only, I think, kind of scary thing with people who play indoor beach is that you don't take a time off for your body, and you are doing the same repetitive motions. And so if you're doing that, you're just so at risk for overuse injuries. And then also burnout, which is like the kiss of death for an athlete. You know, you always want to kind of leave something in the tank and want to be hungry for more. And I think that's what an off season affords you. But yeah, you know, I think it's just such a great thing to try, you know. And I would be such a hypocrite. I was like, go out there, it's easy, go try. Like, I grew up near Santa Cruz, which is a beach town, obviously, in NorCal, and I would not play. I just couldn't do it. And when I first started training with Misty, when I was 22, new to the beach, I would not let people watch us practice. Like, I was so ashamed of how I was, but I was also playing on the #1 tour in the world, you know, like, so it was such a weird dichotomy to be so embarrassed, but like going for it at the same time. But yeah, you know, I think also maybe what might take the pressure off is maybe have some one-on-one practices, but maybe just go and play, go and be weird, you know, go play 6-on-6 and then go down to 4-on-4 and then 3-on-3. I think what's missing today, even in like the young kids, is just people like start within the system right away without kind of just screwing around and getting a feel for like how playful it can be and how weird you can be, and developing your own technique. You know, people are just being really, really trained, really technically from the beginning. And I think that could be intimidating. So my recommendation for anybody would just be go mess around and have fun. And you're going to have fun. And then you can just decide what to do with that.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a problem with volleyball across the board, is just kids go into training right away and don't have that. Just kind of, I was just talking with somebody today. There's no kind of street version of volleyball for
totally
kids, where they go out and play with their friends in the street and play that game. They play baseball, they play basketball, they play soccer. Yeah. They don't play street volleyball. All right, I'm going to get on to the next question, which would be, it's kind of a two-parter. They want to know how you mentally and physically fire up for your important game days, and if you have any pregame rituals that you do before every match.
Well, just fundamentally, I'm fired up. So that's not an issue.
Your baseline is fired up.
Yes. And sometimes that's a problem because, we only have finite energy. And if I'm bringing 110% of everything, even this call, like I could burn out later, but I am like, my goal is to always give 100% of what I have, to whatever I'm doing. So I'm inherently fired up. I know that. So that means my work is to become grounded before I compete. And before I train. I think something that, it's such an interesting question to me. It's like, how do you get fired up before a big game? It's like, well, I train myself in practice the exact same way, or even maybe more gnarly than I do competition time, because in practice, I'm encouraged to fail. I'm encouraged to push my boundaries and to like expand my potential when the pressure isn't on. But it's up to me to bring the intensity. And I feel like I do that pretty well. Whereas a lot of people they hold back in practice, and they're trying to be perfect and refined in practice, which I think there's a good space for that too. But I also think you kind of need to be wild and free in practice as well. So that when you come time to compete, you've pushed that boundary, and then if you're feeling good, you will go for that extra whatever because you've trained it. But so fundamentally before every practice, before every competition, something that is non-negotiable, I have 10 to 15 minutes of quiet, like stillness, no music, no talking to anybody. I lay out my sarong, go under a tree, or if I'm indoors, then I will go find a quiet corner, lay on my back, knees up, and I start breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, kind of trying to regulate my system. When I deep breathe like that, my whole nervous system chills out. And then I'm able to be in the moment. And if I'm in the moment, then I'm rad. If I'm kind of going too hard, too fast, I'm scattered and I'm not able to like use everything that I have. So I start with my breath and then I go into like a prayer. I talk to God every day. It's part of my process, whether I'm playing or not. And so I have my prayer for the match. You could also call it an intention. How I want to show up, how I want to feel out there. I always want to be a hunter. I want to be the lion. I don't want to be, the hyena that's getting chased or the antelope. I want to come and, attack, at least mentally, not always physically aggression wise. And then I visualize. I visualize just the super basics of my game, my passing form. I visualize my target where I want to pass the ball majority of the time. I visualize my serve, waiting on my approach, everything that I'm kind of really working on every single day as a volleyball player. For me, the hardest thing in volleyball is waiting. I'm just so early because I'm so damn excited. And the people who are the raddest, who have the best vision, who have the best touch in the ball are those who are almost late to the ball. Like it's impossible to be late to the ball. Like we all are just too fast and we just go to where the ball is. But if you can train yourself to be late, oh my hell. And that's like in my last years of my career, that is like my number one mission is to be late to the ball, because then it's like my hearing picks up and my vision picks up out of necessity, but if I'm under it and early, then it's like, I'm just getting lucky and trying to be physical, So my process is super simple. It used to be really complex, but that got exhausting and there were too many variables that I couldn't keep up with. And I don't want to be a slave to any like one ritual, So outside of my quiet, I've gotten rid of everything. And then I'll do my warm up, my jog, my stretch. I connect with my team. We kind of do our team prayer, team intention. And then we remind ourselves to focus on the good, to win or lose together, and to go and kick ass and be who we want to be and go from there.
Do you have anything, like, for example, I know myself when I play with a partner, I very intentionally tell myself to make physical contact with my partner after every single point, whether it just be, even if I just like tap them with a finger on the back or something like that. Do you have anything like that you feel like keeps you connected, that you're very intentional about?
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, I'm a connector, maybe too much, Brooke doesn't like hugs and I hug her probably too much, but it means we did something good. So that's okay. But there was a study in the NBA a couple of years ago on the Warriors, and it's like, why are they so dominant? And what they researched was their team connectivity, like their physical touch, their eye contact, their verbal cues to each other. And they out-connected other teams by a huge factor, and they were dominating. And intrinsically, I know that, to execute it is different, because you don't want to just do it to do it. You want to do it with sincerity. And so that's just something that we train ourselves to do. We definitely connect. It's really important, because generally when you kind of go into a funk, whether it's the team or an individual, we all tend to isolate, and kind of try to internally problem solve. And if you can train yourself to stay connected in those moments, you're going to be able to problem solve together, which is where the magic is. There was one moment in Rio when we had lost a semifinal match. I played terribly. We got the chance to play for bronze. And prior to the match, our coach, Marcia Sicoli, was like, April, Kerri, no matter what's happening, if you're up by 15 or you're down by 15, just stay connected. That's all I ask of you. And for the first game and a half, it was terrible. Like we were just it was like we're kind of going through the mud. It was so hard. And we were doing that isolation thing. And then at some point, I remember April, I was like just going back to serve because we got a point, and she grabbed my arm and was like, Kerri, and made me look at her. Like she paused, and it was almost like the uncomfortable eye contact, You're like, are we going to hug? Are we going to kiss? What are we going to do? But it was like, wake up. And I'm so grateful. And I will never forget that, because sometimes that's all it took. And most times that's all it takes. So if you can stay connected, if that's not working, call a timeout, do a little dance, say a joke, like anything to switch the energy is so important.
Absolutely. I think I'm actually pretty connected to the Stanford program, just because John brought me in to come in and work during the summertime, starting like 6 or 7 years ago. One of the things with those girls is if you look at their bench has so much fun during even the gnarliest, stressful matches. And I think that's a huge key to their success that no one really talks that much about, but they're such wacky girls and they have so much fun, and they're allowed to be just goofy and fun on the sideline. And I think, obviously they have amazing players, Catherine and Jenna and Audrey and all those girls, they're amazing players. But I think that's what allows them to win those crucial matches and sometimes dominate those crucial matches.
No doubt. You know what? The energy that you give is it's everything. And so if you're on a team, whether you're a starter or not, if you never play, you can still majorly affect the game. And I said this on a Zoom call earlier. There's a book that I love. It's called The Carpenter. It's by John Gordon. And basically it's this carpenter. He's basically a handyman, but the love and attention and enthusiasm, he does every single task, even if it's like replacing a nail or like fixing a hinge. He's a craftsman. And therefore he's transcendent, and he like makes a huge impact. And you can say the same thing in volleyball, like whether you're the star or you're a role player or you never play, be a craftsman wherever you are. And like, I have fundamentally come to learn that everything is an exchange of energy. And I believe in the law of attraction, and what energy you put out is the energy that you're going to receive. And so generally, if you're wonky, if you're funky, there's no place else to look but yourself. And if you want to get something from other people, be that, and then they'll start coming to you. Like, have you ever walked out the door, you're kind of in an a-hole mood, you walk out and that's all you run into is kind of a-holes and jerks? Like, that's you're setting the tone.
Quotes I say all the time is that if you go through your day and you meet an a-hole, that person was probably an a-hole. If you go through your day and you meet 20 of them, you're probably the a-hole.
I know. It's so true. And and that's rad because it's in our hands. Like there's only so many things we can control in life. We can control our attitude, we can control our focus, and we can control our energy, and all of those things like add up to one thing, and in these times of like COVID and being on the court, like we can't focus on the end result. We can't focus on, how we're upset our partner's not behaving how we want them to be. We have to lead ourselves first and be who we want to be around. And I swear to you, it happens every time. It's a really gnarly discipline. Like it's exhausting, but it doesn't have to be. And the more you train yourself to do that in easy situations, like in practice, where again, the pressure's off, then in game time, you're going to be so well trained. And I love, like, it's just out there because of the Michael Jordan Last Dance episode. It's just like you fall to the level of your training in competition. So to expect to show up on game day and do something exceptionally different that you've never done in practice is dumb. Like it's not even like logical. If that happens, it'll be like rare and not consistent or sustainable. But if you train that stuff, body, mind, and spirit on the court and training, like you can be a Jedi. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, so I would be curious on your take, because something that I say to my players is that the notion that somehow that some people have the ability to become superheroes under pressure is more or less a fallacy. It's just that some people are able to perform really, really well despite the pressure, and some people have a massive fall off, but that some people just have some innate ability to play better when they're under pressure. Or I get like basketball, like nobody shoots a higher percentage of free throws with the game on the line than they do when they're at practice with with nothing on it at all, right?
Yeah.
So some
No,
guys
right.
are really clutch, like LeBron, Kobe, whoever. They make clutch free throws. So it seems like almost they perform better under pressure, but it's not really that. It's more that they're able to perform the same under. Did you find that to be the case?
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's like there's no big moments basically in their mind. They're like, I'm so well trained. I have developed myself so well that, like, if you watch Steph Curry warm up, he's doing those gnarly shots in practice. And then everyone's like shocked he makes it in the game. You're like, what are you talking about? He trains that, you know? And what I had to learn the hard way, I worked a lot with my performance psychologist, Michael Gervais. And I was talking to him, I was like, when the pressure's on and when the games are really tight, and it's really stressful and it's a big point. And he's like, Kerri, you got to stop. He's like, how you frame these situations is so important. And either you're going to build yourself up to prepare yourself to handle it, or you're going to like overburden yourself with the stress of it. He's like, you're stressing me out just the way you're talking about it. And we're in an office, not on the beach. He's like, what you need to do in those moments is be like, this is a competitive moment. And you are a natural, elite, world-class competitor. And for all of the athletes out there, like the moment he said that, coach, I was like, oh my God, I could breathe. Because then I'm not worried about being perfect. I'm not worried about the end result. I'm worried about competing in the moment. And the athletes who can pivot to a mistake and come back to the moment through the breath work, through the connection with the team, through your positive self-talk, those are the athletes like Kobe, Jordan, Misty, me, ideally, who can do those big pressure time situations because they're consistent with their process, but how many times did Jordan and Kobe and Misty and me miss? Like so many times, but it doesn't stop us. And you have to be consistent even when it's hard, and the process is messy and it's scary. And when you fail, it sucks and you feel like you're a literal failure, but you're just adding to your arsenal. If you fail, then that's a rep at getting stronger mentally.
For sure.
Because are you going to give up, and then you can go and train that failing physically, but every rep is crucial, whether it's body, mind, and spirit.
And how crippling that can be, because it's funny that you bring up Michael, because I'm listening to the book on tape of The Power of Bad right now. And it talks about the example of Michael working with, I can't remember the guy's last name, Felix, the guy that jumped from
Baumgartner.
Space, and how he was just completely crippled and being in the suit. And it wasn't about the jump. It was about being in the suit that he had to be in. And he just could not get past it. And it's like, the guy's a superhero. He's done 2,500 death-defying jumps. And then all of a sudden he just can't perform, and it's a total mental block. And it's really, really interesting how that works for you or against you. So,
well, what's really cool? It's real quick. I've been listening to a guy named Jordan Peterson, who has become like a personal hero of mine. He's a psychologist. And he says that the key is not to be fearless. The key is to get braver. And you get braver by having reps. It's like staring your fear in the face. Like, I have a major fear of failure. I have a major fear of getting served off the court. I'm going to break that down. I'm going to write it down. Any trauma that I've ever experienced, I'm going to look at it. And usually when you write it down or talk about it, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Oh, that's a rad server. It makes sense she got 3 aces on me. Whatever it is, you see it for what it really is without the emotion. And then you kind of whittle it down to the like ABCs. Then you can go train it. And then you could just forgive yourself. And then you can go rep it out. But I love that concept that it's not about being fearless, because everyone's nervous. Like, every athlete in the world is nervous. If they're not, then they don't really care that much. Maybe they're just playing for the paycheck, or maybe they're just playing, just going through the motions. I care. I get nervous all the time. So I don't want to be fearless. I want to get braver. And you do that only by time in the saddle and having the courage and the strength to be vulnerable,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the writing it down, I think that's something actually I've been taking away from this book as well, that I want the girls to do, because I think besides that is, if you write down what actually happened, you tend to not value the bad stuff as highly. You look at it on paper and you go like, oh, I actually only got aced twice in that game, but it felt like I got aced 15 times. And if you look at it on paper, you get a much more realistic view of what really happened. You can kind of disconnect from it, a little bit.
100. And that's with any trauma in life, by the way, just so you know. So yeah, so girls, that's a valuable tool.
Speaking of, well, not total trauma maybe, but I thought that somebody asked about, somebody asked if you had any major injuries in your career. Of course, I know that you've had a couple, gnarly shoulder injuries that you've had to come back from and whatnot. So do you think there's a parallel between what the girls can't do right, what the girls can and can't do right now to get better? That is kind of what you had to go through, because you've had to have long layoffs where I'm sure you were chomping at the bit to get back, but you couldn't. You just had to heal. So what were you doing during that time to still try to better yourself, even though you couldn't be on the court?
Well, I mean, a couple of things, with the beautiful blessing of an injury is that you have to go back to ground zero. And you had an injury because, traumatic injuries happen where you fall weird, you get a car crash, or, or you land weird, you blow something out. That happens. Most often in our sport, it's the overuse stuff, right? And regardless, when you have an injury that requires surgery or a layoff, your duty, and what I've learned, is that you cannot just go to the problem. You have to go to the whole system. And that's the beauty in the injury, because then you get to retool your entire body and system to reinforce it so you won't get hurt again, but that you'll come back stronger. And it's a really powerful thing if you could have the discipline to do that. It's crazy. Most PTs, if you have a shoulder problem, they're only going to look at your shoulder when they should probably be looking at your hips. There's so many things, everything is connected. And so that's one thing. And then, I've had 6 shoulder surgeries. I had 2 surgeries in college that set me up before after, because it was an elective surgery. Like, surgery is not the answer. Getting strong holistically, like I just said, your whole system is the answer. Taking time off, recovering, that's a huge part of this, because we all strength train now. If you don't, you're going to start soon. We all do off the court training and on the court training. And so it's up to us to have the discipline of recovery. Recovery to me means getting your 8 hours of sleep. Like, that should be non-negotiable. Like, you guys are growing. I am a woman. I have 3 kids. I cannot function now anymore if I don't have 8 hours of sleep. And it's because I work so hard on my body and my craft that I need that time to recover. And if I'm not, then it's not sustainable. And I want to be, kick butt forever, so recovery is hugely important. Nutrition is hugely important. I create every meal based off the protein that I'm eating. That's the number one thing I think of. What is the protein in this meal? And I build everything around it. And I eat pretty clean, but we all need protein. Whatever it is, you could be vegan. You need your protein. So prioritize that, especially as an athlete, because we have to rebuild the tissues that we are breaking down constantly. And nobody, I certainly don't, I'm starting to now, nobody probably your age eats enough protein. So figure out what that should be for you. It should be probably 30 grams a meal, depending on how much you weigh. And just
what about during competitions? I know that, for our indoor girls and our beach girls, their competition days are really long, and they have long layoffs in between matches and stuff like that. So that, they've got a meal plan essentially from maybe 6:30 in the morning to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Do you have any suggestions about nutrition for them during those process?
I think the cleaner the food, the better it is. I always get an upset tummy before I compete because I'm nervous. And if I eat junk, then that's going to be trouble, So I kind of eat consistently regardless of whether I'm competing or not. I just eat at least 2 hours before I start warming up. That's kind of my rule. That's the way my body likes it, but I'll have like a bite of a bar or a sip of a shake, kind of right before I get going. I carry honey sticks with me. That's really fast sugar. And if you're low in blood sugar, like at a timeout, or if it's a long day and you have some honey, it's like quick brain food. It's genius. Yeah. My performance psychologist, Gervais, told me this to do that. So I highly recommend doing that instead of like, Starburst or some crap like that. But nutrition is just it's such, Gatorade is terrible for you. There's so many things that are marketed as high performance, but it's just junk. And so in my opinion, when you shop for, pre-tournament, just for life, stay out of the middle aisles, eat real food, eat whole foods. And if you can, kind of train your body to be a fat burning machine, which means you eat a high protein, high fat diet, which will not make you fat. It'll make you very lean because you won't have the bloat and the weird stuff from the sugar and the carbs. Not that carbs are bad. It just shouldn't be the mainstay. But maybe at your age, younger girls, it's probably not that much of an issue. But just research it. You guys, there's so many things you can do for your body, and nutrition is just such an individual thing. Just like strength training. Do not compare yourselves in the gym to what other people are doing. I have the longest femurs you've ever seen, and people want me to squat like I'm 5'5", and I'm like, you're crazy. And I felt like a failure for so long, and I finally understand that my body is different, and I need to do what's good for me. So it's just across the board. Don't compare yourself, and it's up to you to figure out what works well for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife's sitting here next to me. She's a CrossFit athlete, but she's 5'9". And so she just
So a
can't do what
taller
some of
one.
the other girls in the gym can do that are
Yeah.
5 feet tall. And she just never will be able to
It would be hazardous.
because the upper part of her legs are too long, and it just is what it is. So
Totally.
she's had to come to terms with it. Yeah, for sure. Okay. We got a couple minutes left here. Okay. So in terms of, you say that your baseline is fired up, but are there days that you don't feel like training? And if you don't, what do you do to make yourself get in the gym anyway?
Lately, there's plenty of those days.
Yeah, it's been tough.
You know, yeah, it's gnarly. This is really emotional, you know, and I think there's a lot of positives to come from this. Like, I'm learning my weaknesses, that's for sure. I'm learning that I need a schedule. Like, that is sanity to me, because I'm usually so regimented.
I'm with you.
If I don't,
I'm scatterbrain, like ultra creative,
yeah.
like it's super difficult.
No, you can go down rabbit holes. So yeah, have a schedule. If it's in my schedule,
Yeah.
I will do it. But if it's not, it might not happen. Wait, what was the question?
When you don't feel like going to the gym, what do you do to get yourself in there?
Well, it's in the schedule, right? And people are expecting me to be there. That accountability is really, really important. I think about my goal. You know, is this choice going to help me toward my goal or hurt me? I literally have that conversation with myself, and I'm like, Kerri, how bad do you want it? I'm like, damn it, I gotta go, you know. And then eventually I'll get fired up. I think about my partner, you know, who I'm doing it with, and that always gets me going, because I never want to let anyone down. I want to be reliable. I want to have trust within my team, and I want to have trust in myself. And that means I have to be consistent, you know. And if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. That has to be, otherwise I'm lying to myself. And that's kind of it. You know, it's just my job, and I signed up for it. I'm not a victim. You know, I'm not a victim because it's Friday. I've had 18 workouts this week and I'm tired. Like, this is a choice. So I'm going to go and give 100% of what I have. Even if that day I have like 60% of normal, I'm going to go and be all there and commit and, get through it and try not to complain.
Have you heard Kobe talk about how he negotiates with himself and how other people negotiate with themselves, and that just being a huge difference between why he was able to have success, and just understanding the process of how almost like his brain is adversarial to him. Like, he's got two halves of his brain that are negotiating against each other, and just what he's made up in his mind already before that negotiation process starts, what he's willing to do and not do. And so he doesn't allow himself into his head to start negotiating with himself, because once he gets there, if he doesn't already have a plan for it, it's so easy to not go. But if you already told yourself way before.
Totally. Yeah. I laid my stuff out the night before, you know, like that's like any like steps to the process that just keep it front and center and make me feel guilty, you know, like that's important. And it's a strategy, you know, it's a tool that I use, because some days it's super hard, you know. There's a book called The War on Art. And it basically talks about procrastination for an artist is like death. And they kind of label procrastination as the devil. And it's like, do not let the devil win. And the same thing for athletes, you know, to the devil, whatever you want to call it, a competitor, like that person telling you to stay in bed, I'm tired, you deserve it, is literally, think of it as the number one club you guys have to face. And being like, no, I hear you, I'm going to beat you, you know, and that kind of stuff really helps, you know. You just have to use all the tools. And fundamentally, I feel like if you're sincere in what you're going for and you believe that you can get it, you have to commit. The Kobe's of the world, the Michael Jordans, me, Misty, like the best in any realm are consistent. They're committed and they consistently show up. Even if they have bad days, they show up and they give what they have, you know, and their bad days are actually really good, relatively speaking, you know, because they're so high standards, you know? Yeah. And so I just feel like you just need to have standards for yourself. You have to be really self-accountable. And if you want to be any kind of leader in life, you have to be reliable, trustworthy, and you have to have high standards so that you can lead other people to high standards. You know, people will not give you any weight in leadership if you're not doing what you're asking of them.
Absolutely. Last thing, because I know we're right here at 6:00. Any current like books or mentors? You already name dropped a couple books and people, but if you just had to give the girls something that they should look into, like a book that you definitely think that they should read, or a person they should look into.
Okay. Well, Finding Mastery, Mike Gervais. And any of the athletes or coaches he interviews, you should listen to him. My favorite book in the whole entire world, I would gift it to everybody, is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's old school writing. It's kind of weird, but it's awesome. It just talks about we are what we think, basically, you know, and it's an incredible book. And if you can live that way, you will live a good life. The Way of the Champion. It's based on the art of war. And there's a lot of, you should do it as a club. There's a lot of team building opportunities within it and a lot of personal, you know, accountability stuff. So I would check that out. No, baby, I'll find it. But I think I'd start there, you know, and then also I just wanted to say before we get off, you know, we launched a virtual training program and we just finished week 1 today, and we're training everyone body, mind, and spirit. And, you know, my strength coach of 20 years is leading the 4-week training block. Stein Metzger, who coaches UCLA, and our Brazilian coaches are doing the volleyball. And then I'm helping
my hero
to
when
lead the
I was a kid.
mindfulness training. Who? Stein?
Steino.
Oh, you got good.
When I was in high school, he was at UCLA, and he was my
he's
freaking
so impressive.
hero.
He's so impressed. I mean, it's understandable why he's a champion and why he creates champions at UCLA. So if you guys are looking for something to do in your schedule, if you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for a community in this weird time, what we're doing is awesome. P1440.camp.
I think some
and
of
it's
our
everything
girls
we
are
just
already
talked about.
involved in it.
Oh, rad. I would love feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, it's just, you know, we're having everyone do a daily gratitude journal, and it seems fluffy and so lame. It could, not to me, but it could. And it's just like, I swear to you, it's like this stuff that you can do to connect with yourself, to connect your purpose. That helps you on those hard days, you know, and it just reinforces your whole system so that you can leverage everything you have. Oh no, are we?
I think
Are we there?
But
okay.
I think you're good.
Okay. Girls, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Thanks, Taylor Wilson.
Anything else? I think Chris might have frozen up.
Okay. Well, I'll just say thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. You guys will be in my thoughts and prayers. I just don't forget that this is supposed to be fun, you know, and that your path is going to be so unique and so different to everyone else's. You know, people keep asking me like, what's the timeline and how do I separate myself from everyone else so that I can have the best partner or the best club team or the best college looking at me. And fundamentally, you just got to focus on yourself, becoming a master of everything that you can control, being a master of the basics, and don't worry about anyone else because you can't control it. You know, and then make sure you have fun. You know, I tend to take myself super seriously, and which is okay because I want what I want so bad, but you can also suffocate something that you want by wanting it too bad, you know? So it's like finding that right amount of tension of like doing your best and leaving up to God or leaving up to destiny, and then not trying too hard. You know what I'm saying? But still giving it your all. So have fun, you guys. I will be cheering you guys on. And thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you guys. Have a beautiful weekend. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care, you guys.